and welcome to the Spotlight. We want to welcome you to another awesome show with another awesome guest here in the studio with me tonight, whose perspective is very valuable. And we want to welcome Mr. Mel King from A Male's Point of View. Mr. Mel, how you doing?
I'm doing great. What about yourself, Dawn?
Doing well, doing well. You know, a little settled in right now. And glad to have you.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I was surprised.
Why? Why were you surprised?
I never had a call like this before. I was like, who's this lady asking me all these questions first?
Well, you know, a lot of people definitely want to hear from you. And you guys have been a #1 show on video on demand before. And so people are tuning in. And so we wanted you to be here so we can kind of get some behind the scenes information from you.
Okay.
All right. Now, I know you are one half, or there's sometimes often more than two of you doing the show, hosting the show. So tell me a little bit more about A Male's Point of View and your co-hosts when they're on the show.
Well, I'd like to thank my co-hosts, first of all, CJDius, and better known as Chris Johnson, and Abda Alexander, better known as ABDA or the Lion Man. And we have various guests as well. So I'd like to thank all of you who have been on the show.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome, because when I've watched your program, the opening is you guys, you know, either coming in or you're in your element. You know, Mr. CJDius is reading, and, you know, as he's being introduced in the credits, and you walk in, you know, from doing what you do. So tell everybody, what do you do? What is your vocation, community activity?
Oh, wow. Well, Muhammad Ali said it ain't bragging if it's the truth. So let me go ahead and I own National Appliance Repair.
Okay.
That's my profession. I do appliance repair. Mm-hmm. Then I have National Appliance Repair Academy, which is designed to train young youth and women and men, and familiarize them with appliance repair, because you never hear a child or an adult say, I want to go to school or trade school to learn appliance repair. When they make a pretty good living doing it. Mm-hmm. You'd be surprised. Look at the numbers.
That's nice.
But I volunteer in the community a lot, been active in the community for years. Mm-hmm. Most people call me Coach King. Mm-hmm. And dealing with mostly the young men and some young women and adults in the community, and just volunteering, staying busy.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well, I know that you are, you know, you can be a coach, considered a coach as like life coach, but you coach football too, right?
Football, basketball, baseball.
Okay, everything.
And baseball, should I say.
And baseball. Okay, right. Nice. So let's talk about the show and the title of it. Why A Male's Point of View? Do you feel like a lot of men's voices are squashed sometimes?
Yes, well, the name, I didn't want to do the show. Mm-hmm. I never wanted to be out front in the spotlight. Mm. But one of the young men that I mentored, David Phillips, mm-hmm. He kept saying, you know so much. And I was like, man, I don't know nothing. And he was like, no, you need to get a show. And I was like, no. And God kind of speaks to me. Well, he used to speak to me in threes. Now that I'm a little wiser, it only takes him 2 times to tell me.
Right.
So I said, okay. I hear you, God. And I wanted to do a show where only black men, I think there's only been 2 women on the show. Okay. Where black men could be heard, mm-hmm. and people could see us in a different light and understand how we think. Right. You know, we're not liked by a lot of people, so being African American males, mm-hmm. and I wanted to enlighten some folks mm-hmm. on you know, that, hey, we're human too.
Right.
And talk about some issues and, you know, anything that really comes to mind.
Why do you think African American males are not liked very much?
Well, first of all, because I'm one, and I've experienced prejudice in the workplace, discrimination because of my color, not being promoted because I wear an earring, and I was with a big corporation and they wouldn't promote me because I wore an earring. And I said, well, show me in the rule book, in the handbook, where it says I can't wear one. So they sent a African American gentleman to say, hey, look, Mel, just take it out your ears so we can go ahead and promote you. And I said, no, if that's what it's going to take, I'm not going to do it. But being discriminated against as a child, being discriminated against in sports, being discriminated against in restaurants, and it's not, I could be encompassing a lot of people that have experienced that. But as an African American male, we also get a sense of fear. I've been accused of, because I was in charge of some people of a different color, I've been accused of doing some things that I did not do just to try to get rid of me. And I'm sure that's happened to some other people, but I feel the fear, especially when I was a younger man. Now that people see my gray hair, they say, oh, that old man ain't gonna do nothing. But being a younger man, I could feel the fear of people when I would come around, you know, and I'm just as polite and I can say hello and people would still, and then not only that, I'm one who I've got to verify things. So in talking with other men, I ask, do y'all feel this way? Excuse me. We never talk about this, so we have conversations, and they like, yeah, you know, I get the same thing, you know, just like, and this is totally off subject, but for example, when men go through a divorce, they feel like they're failures. I thought it was just me with my first divorce, and I wanted the divorce. However, I said, I wonder, do some of my friends who've been through a divorce and we go through depression, even if we wanted out of the relationship, it's not talked about. And that's just one of the examples of something that's really not out there that people don't know. And a lot of times our African American women don't know that we go through things that we don't necessarily talk about with our spouse or our friends. And that's kind of validated amongst the friends that I have, should I say.
Well, I want to say now that I think it's very awesome and very informative that you are as transparent as you are. And on the show, the things that I've seen on the show and the topics of conversation, you all are very transparent. And Mr. David was right. We want to give you a shout out, Mr. David, and also his wife, you know, about Rhonda. Yes, they have shows here about how, you know, important it is to talk and to get this out. So I think it's wonderful. And I remember something you said on your show about when there's a drop of water that may hit the same spot all the time. It's like the same things that you experience over and over again, it can wear on you.
Right.
So how do you feel like some of that has worn on you, all the adversity that you may have experienced?
I just hadn't worn on me, it's made me strong.
Oh, well, all right then.
I refuse. I seen my dad, who couldn't read or write, third grade education. I've seen my grandfathers. I've had that experience cropping tobacco, picking cotton, slopping hogs. A lot of kids don't have that experience.
Right.
And they never quit, no matter what they went through, one thing I glad that I got was their willingness to keep moving. The one thing that I'm glad I didn't get is that they couldn't say that I love you to another man because it wasn't common back, when I was growing up.
They held a lot of things in.
They held a lot of things in, but they made a lot of things happen with very little. And as a child, you could figure it out when you get older, but it took a long time for me to be able to say, hey, I love you to another guy. And it was okay. I remember when I first came home back to Michigan, my freshman year, coming from JCSU, Johnson C. Smith, my brother, he ran up to me. He's my older brother and one of my greatest heroes. He ran up to me and he said, I love you, and he hugged me.
Oh,
and I
nice.
pushed him. I said, was you gay or something?
Okay.
Because
that's how you took it. That's how you responded.
That was the first man that ever told me that he loved me, because my dad never said it. I knew it. But no one ever said it to me. And he said, no, I just love you. But see, he left home early and he stayed with some white people, and that was common in their household, but it wasn't common in our household.
Right.
So then it made me curious, and I began to explore and research, and then I started to understand some things.
Very good, very good. You made a motion earlier where you said, no, it's made me strong. And it reminded me of the graphic that is at the open of your show. And it looks like this man who has a big globe on his back.
Right, he's holding the world on his shoulders.
Yeah, the world on his shoulders. Do you feel that way sometimes?
The world on my shoulders,
maybe based on what you've experienced?
I have this belief, I've been told, that I wasn't going to be anything, that I was never going to be nothing, and it was only motivating to me. But not by my family, but by outsiders. My family always thought I was the greatest, and I love all you guys, those of you that are still here. But I was told that I wouldn't be anything, so it's only made me tougher, because I've always had to fight just to prove people wrong. I say, how dare they judge me? And I said, I'm going to prove them wrong. And I've always just been like that. But when you say the world on my shoulders, so I got a challenge. Well, not a challenge. One of my friends said, Mel, you always helping somebody. You can't save the world. And that bothered me. It bothered me for about 4 months, because I couldn't figure it out. I kept saying, how can I save the world? And then finally, God showed it to me. He said, you can touch somebody who could touch somebody who could touch somebody who could save the world.
Look at that. That's a lot of people, part of the world.
So that's my motto. That's why I mentor, because one of these children, they might take something I say. At least I believe I could do it. I got faith that I could do it.
I love it. That's good. And you know what, Mr. Mel, all of what you're talking about, what you just said about it being a challenge, and about proving people wrong, and about people who are telling you that you're never going to be anything, I think that ties into why African American men are so feared. I think there's greatness, such greatness, that it presents fear. It provokes fear. I really do. Anytime anything is receiving a lot of adversity, there's something there that people are probably afraid of, that needs to come out. Not something negative, but something powerful and positive. And you just really hit on it. You said, if people tell me, that's an adversity, somebody telling you that you're not going to be anything, or that you're not this. So you're like, no, that's a motivating aspect. So whatever is in you that's so powerful, I think that is a fear. Maybe people don't know that that's what they're afraid of, but the wonderful, powerful, awesome things that men and African American men can do, I think is something that needs to be tapped into and looked at a different way. So, yeah, you're touching a lot of people. These young boys, let's talk about them.
I think that I don't like the parenting that I see not only in Charlotte, but on TV. So how do I change it? So I get involved with the kids. Most of the time I'm volunteer with Charlotte Mecklenburg, Salvation Army, and just churches, anything I could do. But one thing I'm going to be is true to myself, and if I think somebody is full of it, I'm not going to mess with them. So I see that the children are so innocent, and the parents, they're not going to go to the PTA unless it's a football game, and they got the PTA meeting at the halftime, or basketball.
That's what we doing now.
If they got the PTA meeting at halftime, that's the only time you see the parents. And so my thing is, they come to me and they say, Coach King, I got a text on my phone today, the kid acting up. Can you talk to him again and get him straight? Because he gets on track when I talk to him, or make him do extra push-ups or sit-ups or whatever. And just tell him that, hey, you know, you're great. And that's what I tell the young men, that they're great. They never hear that. I asked them, I say, how you doing? They say, I'm good. And I said, well, why can't you be great? And then they look at me. So I say, you got to speak it. And I sow it into them. And then their parents see that, how can this man that don't live in my house, a kid, and Coach Edie is my other coach, who we kind of like play good cop, bad cop.
Okay.
So I'll shout out to Coach Dwight Edie. But a kid, mom came and told him one day that he got in trouble in school. And his mom and his dad was talking to him, and his mom said, I'm going to tell Coach Edie and Coach King. And they say the kids start crying and say, no, don't tell them. And the dad said, well, why aren't you afraid? Because I can whoop your butt, and you respond to them better, and they can't whoop you than I do.
Wow.
So we got this thing called reverse peer pressure. So if you get in trouble, now all your friends get in trouble. So all y'all got to do extra exercises. And it's nothing to harm them, only to make them stronger. But they think it's punishment because they got to run extra laps. But it's really strengthening their body, or extra push-ups. So they don't want to have their friends do something because, something extra because of their actions. So we just hold them all accountable for everybody's action, and it seems to be working out real well. We've been doing it for years. So
that sounds like it is working, and it sounds like it's not just strengthening their bodies when they have to do that, but their minds, they're thinking. I don't want to do this because I know what my actions are going to affect somebody else. That's good.
Yeah,
that's real good.
Well, thank you. We got a lot of good guys, and a lot of the men that we've worked with, when they were young men, they come back and they help and they volunteer. So that's good too. That's good. This is really helping me because I work with youth as well. And, of course, the young boys, they look at me as, big sis, auntie, or what have you. And I often wonder, I try to teach them to be respectful, like gentlemen and stuff. And some of the young kids, they're like,
why we have to do this now? Why we have to let the girls line up first? Why we need to open the door? And I'm just wanting to try to, encourage them that's just a part of respect, and somebody should open the door for you too, There's different ways that you can show respect. So I love to hear that you are instilling things in them as well, that making them think.
Well, we hope to reach the parents because we're not there all the time. So we hope that the parents will focus in a little bit more when they see that we can get the child to do something that they can't, because parenting starts at home.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does, and I feel you, because sometimes the parents are part of the problem. And when that's the case, because there are a lot of volatile situations, sometimes it's not just kids wanting to, rebel. Mm. It's about them being able to decide what they are going to do. They need to figure out what they need to do. And so to help them, being a part of the village, in order to help them, how do you advise all of us, male, female, all of us older folks, trying to help the youth? What are some of the things that you advise us to do?
I would say first, we all take the good and the bad from our upbringing, and we have to be able to correct that in ourselves first, but then in correcting it in ourselves, we have to look at the household and where these tendencies are coming from, because just like the young otter teaches, the elder otters teaches the young otter how to swim, how to fish, and everything. Right. They pick up tendencies. Yeah. So our youth pick up tendencies, the good ones and the bad ones. Right. So we gotta understand why this kid is like that, because they're picking up tendencies, but then you can't change that environment. Right. But yet and still, you can say, hey, you ever thought about this? You'll get better results. Right. It's a way to present it without provoking the household, but it's a thin line, because, well, a lot of times people just want you to babysit their kid when they drop them off. They just want to get rid of them and go get a sausage sandwich. Right. Well, in some of these situations where they're really more serious and they're volatile, do you have counselors that you can point the kids to? I do. That's what they do? Most of the time they're not volatile, because we may have one out of maybe 200-300 kids that may be volatile. And then this is the thing. We met some of the volunteers we met, and it's something I never thought about. And a social worker was there, and she said, the question was, why are these kids acting this way? And then the lady said, well, you ever thought that they were just hungry? True. And it made sense, because I get an attitude when I get hungry. Right. So the first thing you do is offer them something to eat. Hey, did you eat? Right. Get something to eat. Right. Now you can calm down. And I've been doing this for, like I said, over 30 years, and I just learned this 6 months ago. That's awesome, Mel. Feed people, right? Yeah, we say that here too at the studio. Feed your crew. The Snickers commercial, right? Right. You got attitude. I know I'm like that. Right. I had to make sure I ate something before I got here. Right. So I would be friendly and pleasant. Well, you have been, and we could continue to talk, but just like your show, half-an-hour show, got to wrap it up, and maybe we'll have you back, talk to you a little bit more about especially these young people. So thank you for being here. Thank you for having me, Don. Absolutely. I love you, Access 21. Well, we love you too, and tell Mr. Abda, CJadius, and all your other guests, Mr. David, that we said hello, and we'll have you back. Dwight Edie, Coach Ivy, thank you guys for all you do.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
All
Okay.
right.
All righty. And you guys, thank you also for joining us for this episode of the Spotlight. And we'll see you the next time right here.